Good morning, everyone. As per usual, we'll just let the last latecomers jump in. Welcome to the WorkPoint 365 Quality Management webinar. We will begin shortly. We're going to talk about management of quality in the view of how to use WorkPoint for QA. And before we do the exact demo, I'd like to point out a few things when we're talking about the management system. We will be looking at a framework, a complete framework for management of all the policies, processes, procedures, etc. that any organization would have. So we're not just talking about an electronic handbook. Some people refer to QA, they think about it's an electronic handbook. Back in the days, in the early days, it was simply a binder sitting at a shelf with a quality manual for the organization, and it was hard to reach sometimes. Then we got all the computer and electronic systems, and it was, again, a lot of people turned the electronic, the handbook into an electronic one. But still, it was just a handbook, a list of documents, and that's also very necessary, but we're just trying to broaden the term a little bit. Now we're looking at the management system, we're looking at processes, as everybody probably know, a series of steps, and we have different types of processes in the operations and in the management and the whole quality setup. So what I would like to start with is to just go through the components and the parts that we see important in this kind of system. And of course, not everybody have the same needs, but a lot of these things will be quite necessary for all organizations working with quality. So these are our system components, and we'll start from one end, but not necessarily sequence. We have what we call process areas. The process areas would be things like delivery or manufacturing, etc., where you have some processes, and all of these can be broken further down into smaller processes. The whole idea is to have one place to work with the processes in your organization where you can refine and improve and develop your processes and add more processes if necessary. To do that, and obviously these things will feed into documentation that will be distributed to employees. But to do this, you need to have a workspace for it. You also need to have the ability to manage the opportunities that will show up over time. That would be when an employee gets a good idea or sees something that could be improved. It would be when the legislation is changed for better or for worse, etc. New products, that kind of stuff. So when you can catch these opportunities and record them and then put them into the system to properly manage them in the right processes, then you have a much better system. We also have what we call initiatives. These are the kind of well-defined project or something where it's internally in the organization where they choose to take an initiative to improve or change something that will also have an effect on the process areas and eventually the whole function of the organization. Now all of this will feed into the other parts where we have the first one, the handbook, which would be the documentation, all the processes, the policies, the instructions, all set together to make sure that we can comply with whatever requirements we have. I'll go through this more in detail later. We have the ability to log complaints. Obviously, complaints from customers would be hopefully something we could avoid, but when they come in, we need to manage them, and we need to make sure we can correct whatever action is needed, so we can log the complaints and then take a proper action. If we are a company that has certifications, ISO standard certification or something else, we would like to have that controlled in the system as well, especially so we can make sure that we have we comply with all the clauses in the certifications. A lot of people perform audits in their organizations, and obviously when you audit a process or a site or whatever, you want to be able to log that and to perform it and to record what's going on, and also when you have something not complying with the requirements, you would like to record your non-conformities, so you again can take a corrective action to get things sorted out and eventually improve your process and your quality. So these are the main components we see as part of the quality management system. Going a little bit into the detail of the handbook. The handbook would be, as I said, all the documentation, and this is to show that we have the QA documents sitting here. They will have relation to the processes. Obviously, these are documentation of how the processes should be working. They have relations to the products, the suppliers, the customers. All of this are affecting how these documents are worked out. In the system, you will be able to have your documents tagged in various categories. You would have the ability to be notified and notification of groups or single persons when a document is either updated or reviewed. You have various types of documents. You have related documents you need to link together because they might be relevant to update one and then another. And of course, you will have a formal approval process to make sure that things are done in the right order and approved formally by the QA responsible for this particular document. So this is all an organized way of working with building the handbook and maintaining it. One important point here is the read log, where you want to be able to, when you have a formal approved document that is published, you want to make sure that you can see that the relevant people that should read this have actually read it. And this is where you want to be able to log. Now, person X had opened and read and signed, checked a box or signed something that says, yes, I, Mr. X, have actually read this document. So this also you want to be able to track, because then you can always document that not only do you have a proper quality manual, you also know that your employees have read these things. When we talk about developing the documents, there's quite a formal, relatively straightforward process where you create or you change a document, and you have it in a draft. You, the responsible person for this particular document, instruction or process or whatever it is, change it and have it reviewed by one or more persons. Again, when they have changes, those reviewers that will be implied to the document, then there will be a formal approval of the document. And if it's rejected, if it's not good enough, we have to do it all over again. When the document is accepted, approved, then it can be distributed to published to the groups of relevant users. When we show a demo in a minute, you would see a lot of documents, demo data. So some of them are Word documents, some are Excel. Obviously, whenever you publish something approved, you will have a PDF, so it's not just something you change. That was the handbook, QA handbook. I mentioned the process areas. We have designed a process area module. I want to explain a little bit about more how that works. It must be seen as a agile process, perspective, because when you have your process, you will constantly have changes or improvements or opportunities to work with this. So whenever there's changes in, as I said, legislation, or get new ideas or change requests or improvements, or all the things that you have of input will be captured in the opportunities. These would also sometimes imply some risks. So all of this can be worked together and would be reviewed, maybe implemented in the new in a revised process, maybe just rejected, and then it will be fed into the QA documents to make sure we have a proper process. So that's the general idea of the working with the process area. So you can constantly work on improving and developing your processes to become even better. We mentioned audits. Audits, I assume that most of you know that audits are the regular checks on the organization's performance and where in parts of the organization, sites or specific processes. There can be a number of reasons to have audits. Some of them are because of certifications with the ISO or other standards. Some of them are just organizational requirements. Some of them are regulatory, etc., etc. So they would be carried out, and of course there would be sometimes problems, and they would be recorded so you can take a corrective action. There are several types of audits. You would have internal audits where you audit your own organization to make sure that things are as it should be, identify problems, etc. If you have certification and ISO, you would have an external audit party that will come in and audit your organization. Or you might have a relationship with your suppliers that is so important that you will go out and audit how your supplier of subcomponents are doing, and if they're doing it right. It might even be often stated in contracts on how they should act. So these are also captured in WorkPoint modules for this specific purpose. Enough of the slides. Let's try and have a look at what we've set up. This is a demo solution I'll show you. There will be certain demo data that is just not making any sense, but I'll walk you through the general concept of the system. Those of you who are familiar with WorkPoint will recognize the UI. Obviously, this works both in the browser and in WorkPoint Express, just as usual. I will mainly show the browser because this is where it makes most sense to look. You have a dashboard, you have your tools, you have a set of modules, audits, non-conformities, initiatives, process areas, opportunities, complaints, and the handbook itself, and a few QA tools to search in that. You can create new audits, etc. over here. So not a lot of new there. This, of course, a dashboard can be configured to suit any needs. This is just an example of elements that could be put in the dashboard. You probably need something entirely different from your organization, but that's all just a matter of configuration. I can see I have some documents up here, an audit report from a specific audit. I have a process description, and I have some tasks I need to do. I need to take an action on, in this case, a non-conformity, NC. And I also need to create a plan for, in this case, this is a initiative where I need to create a plan for the implementation. Clearly, there's a need for a steel grade change. So the dashboard will continue down here, and you'll get more information as you scroll down. Let's have a look at the process areas to start with. If I go here, I can have various views. I'll just list all of my process areas. It's not that many as it is demo data. And on the process area, I will go and have a look at the, say, the delivery process. I can see that my process in preparation. I can see all the basic data. And I can see an action tracker, what's going on here. I need to review the process flow. I need to handle incoming opportunities. And of course, this actions list could be longer or shorter depending on what you set up of what you have of requirements for working with processes in your organization. I have a set of documents I'm working on at this point. There would be working documents. I would have email correspondings between relevant persons in the organization relating to this process. I will have my opportunities. If any opportunities are listed here, that is when opportunities come in and I have decided that these need to be connected to this specific process. I'll get back to the opportunities in a minute. Clearly, if there are any risks with this process, and that is highlighted up here because we realize that risk is something we should really be careful with. So there could be a set of risks listed on the top here to be very clear. Events are obviously the meetings around this specific process. Notes, quite self-explanatory. And eventually, when we build this process and document it, we will have a set of QA documents that will eventually go into the QA manual. So this is the working space for your process, in this case the delivery process. Clearly they could be broken into a lot of sub-processes. We're only demoing here, so we don't do that level of detail. When we go to the opportunities, we can go and have a look and see, good, we have the ability, in principle, everybody can register opportunities, and when you have the opportunities coming in, you will have a long list here of opportunities. The general idea is that people in the organization should be able to register an opportunity. They should not be necessarily be able to put it on a specific process or a specific place. The thought behind this is that there would be people with the knowledge that should be required to go through the incoming opportunities and connect them to those processes that they relate to. In this case, we have the one we just looked at, improvement final delivery process, is clearly connected to the process area delivery process. Whereas this paint thinner thing, this suggestion here or opportunity is not yet treated. So this is just sitting here waiting for the relevant person to assign it to a specific process area where it should be. So that's the way, and of course this list of opportunities hopefully will be continue grow where people are working with the ideas and are putting them in, and some of them will probably be rejected, not relevant. Some of them will be feeding into the processes and will improve the processes. Now, the last main point here is the initiatives. So look at what's in here. We have here the initiative. We noted there was a task for me on the front page, change of steel grade for fertilizer production. We are here having a initiative. Clearly we have identified that we need to change the steel grade from A2 to A4 stainless steel to prevent corrosion from the fertilizer production. So here's a specific initiative that we need to carry out and implement. So you can see this as a small or larger project. It could be. It can be all kind of things, but the idea is that we need to register what initiatives are we taking to do things so we are having it all fit together. Right. Going back, we have, as I said, the handbook. The handbook basically, if we go here to the QA list, just to give you an idea, a long list of documents, and in a real organization where it's not a demo, it would be huge probably. We have a lot of lists, and you can then have all these documents here. They have metadata to tell what category are they, what business process and process area are they connected to, etc., etc., etc. And then you can, of course, filter these into grouped into what business process area are they relating to. This is not for the general user to work with, because this is just the back end, so to say. So if we go to the front again to have the idea of how do I navigate as a user that are working with my QA manual here. Well, I have two options. I have the option of navigating through the document search or a process flow. And a little bit different what people prefer. We have explained both options here. If we start with the flow, you can see that we have a diagram that will show all the the main processes where you can then have you can navigate in this area, and you can also over here look at documents related to the space you're in. So if I go and see, first I can also navigate down through these areas that feeds into the process. Let's go and have the QHSE, and I can drill down and I can see more information here, and so on and so forth. I can always return to my main screen. If we go and have a look at operations, I now have my operation. I can then have it broken down into sub-project processes where I can further drill down and so on and so forth. So the idea is to give the user the ability to say, I'm working in operations, I'm actually working in the customer development, I'm working in such and such, and go down and find the single process that the user needs information on. And when I am in the area I want to look at, then I can say, okay, I want to have a look at all of my documents, all the flow, the instructions, procedures, whatever. So let's just have a look at the procedures. Clicking the procedures, I will now see the procedures for the operation. There's only one very simple procedure. Or I can go and have a look at instructions or just all the documents for this specific process I'm looking at right now. Very easy for the user to understand, to drill down and navigate to the specific process he or she is working with. So that's how the flow works, and I can always, as I said, return to the front page. Easy to navigate through the click, drill down, find the right documents, and then open them. Obviously, these were just a few demo sets. The other way to go through this is to go through the document search. If I go through the document search, I get a similar idea where I have just a little bit more ability to refine. I can perform a full search here for all of my documents, if it bother loading. There we go. So over here I have my selection. I can then see search results in the middle, and if the search result is too big, I can do the refinements. I can do a full search, free text here. I can clear, I can see all documents, but I can also just drill down through my different types of processes. So very similar to the other drill down version. If I click the core processes and I click for example, the operation, I will get some operation. There's a description of the process operation here. So obviously you would typically have a long list, and then you could use the refiners to drill down by category or process areas already selected further to refine your search. Another option could be product development, or I could go back to my core process and say delivery management, and then I have another layer, let's say technical implementation, and so on and so forth. So you will be able to drill down through the processes, or just do simply a search for anything in your system. Now we already drilled down, so this won't refine the search, but if I go back, I will have a full search again. So these are the two ways of navigating for the users to navigate to the right documents that they need to do to look at to carry out their work. Right, that was walk through process areas, initiative, opportunities, and the handbook. Last thing I'm going to show you just a brief view of the audits. I have my audits here. I also have a lot of audits down here. Let's just have a look at the list of audits going on. We have, we could take the fertilizer production. Clearly have had an audit. Going to that, we can see that there is a title, description, purpose, etc., and what type of audit it is. End to end, is it internal? Yes, it is. And we can see that they're in progress. I have an audit checklist. This is the general idea, is that you as the audit responsible, you set up your checklist for all the things you need to check when you're going, and if you then when you find something, when you complete your check, you will record whether they're compliant, if there are any evidence for that, any opportunity for improvement. Check number 2, find out there is a minor non-conformity here because the conveyor belt is not clean enough, so we will have to record that and make some improvements here. If there are documents, emails, meetings, etc. on the audit, we can record it here, and we have an audit report also possible to record. In the end of the audit, you will record your report. Now the non-conformity we need to raise because of the conveyor belt is listed here. So of course I'll just create a non-conformity with the button, and then I will have my mortgages. So I can go down on that one, and what I can see on this is that I have again information about what to do and what should be done. What is important here is also the clause and subclause idea. If you are an organization where you are ISO or have other certifications, then you would be able to log specifically what part of the standard are we not meeting. So it would be very easy to go in and see, right, because of this, we are not meeting subclause 42 in the ISO 9001 because of this problem. So we are actually right now not in compliance with our certification. That is useful information, and make sure we know for sure that when the external auditors come in and check for our certification, they will record exactly the same thing. Now we're ahead of them, and then you have my non-conformity registered. I have it in. I can change it to being in progress, and I can close it when I've made the corrective action, and then I'm home free. Right, that was pretty much the walkthrough. As I said, I have still the ability of using my WorkPoint Express. In here I have my Q&A system. I have all my various modules as I just went through, audits, non-conformities, initiatives, etc. So not going to waste time on explaining this all again. Just know that WorkPoint Express is of course also part of the QMS system. Thank you for your interest. If any questions, please feel free to contact me or your WorkPoint partner.